So we are starting where we left off in our second video. So in the previous video, we created a Siebel Sample Database using the Oracle provided container for the sample database, which Oracle ships with every Siebel version. So make sure you have the correct Siebel version. So you have a database which has all the repository goodies of that version. So in our case, at the time of recording, 25.1 is the latest available Siebel version. So let's just check on that container, and it's still running, of course, as it should be, until we stop it. And now let's prepare and then, of course, run a few more containers to get a Siebel Enterprise going. So as with the Oracle database, we need a persistence layer. So I've prepared a little script here. It's not really a script, but I can run it in PowerShell or any preferred shell to quickly create a few directories. And those directories are in a folder, well, the root folder, if you will, is called persistent. And then I create a structure for each Siebel Enterprise. So potentially, if my machine is beefy enough, I can run not one, but 2 or 3 Siebel Enterprises on the same machine. And you might ask, what is the benefit of running multiple Siebel Enterprises on one single machine? Well, it's evaluation, education. You want to, for example, experiment with the migration applications. You need 2 enterprises. And there you have it. So you can just separate those persistence folders with the enterprise, the future enterprise name. And then for each machine you plan or you deploy in that enterprise, you must have one persistence folder. So that's the way the Siebel containers are designed, to use that folder for their own stuff, like the 3 gateways that we plan to have, the file system. No, don't forget the file system, and any number of AIs. So we start with AI or SAI 01, SES, the Siebel server 01. So as you go and create additional AIs, Siebel servers, or even gateways, you just keep creating those empty folders, and they will be filled in soon enough when those machines start running. For good measure, because I'm a little paranoid, let's give them a few enhanced security privileges. We are on an educational evaluation machine, so we don't want to kind of be bothered with permissions. Yeah, you be the judge of that, but I just give everyone full control. So just that, because, well, I can on this machine, and it's easier probably to avoid any trouble with permissions on these folders, which is a substantial issue on modern day high security infrastructure. So you have to watch out for, if you have any issues, watch out for permission issues. It's most likely that, or it's certificates. One of those 2 things. And I digress, and I'm kidding. Okay, so let's add a few more commands here for podman to run containers. As you can see, I have 5 podman commands ahead of me, and 1 for each machine I want to run. One thing you notice that they're all the same machine, so the same image, that Siebel image, version 25.1, the version I'm using for this recording, and I'm running a machine off that image. And notice that I have the host name and network, of course, using the network we created earlier, and the network alias in, well, uppercase, lowercase, just to be sure. So you see SES01 is really repeated a lot in this command. With company.com, which is the vanilla prefix, or sorry, the vanilla suffix of the fake domain. You get a fake certificate with that, a self-signed certificate. You can replace that, of course. And the machine name is SES01. So that's good enough for a start. And notice how the persistent folder, of course, matches up to that. So we use this very persistent folder, map it as /persistent, which is how the machine is prepared, how the image from Oracle comes. And we also map that another time, this time the FS, we map to /SFS. Again, this is Oracle choose to use that folder internally in the container as the Siebel file system mount point. Then we have, for the Siebel server, you need to specify container mode SES. So that's super neat. I still marvel at that, because you have one single image with all the binaries of Siebel, and you just tell the container, well, you're a Siebel server now, and you three are gateways, and you're an AI, and that's the 3 container modes we have. So one single image, 3 container modes. And then, of course, you have, as a Siebel server, it has to talk to database. So you have environment variables, which are documented, TNS connect string. That's going to be the alias that it creates. We're going to have a look what it does actually with that information. The DB server name, remember Oracle 19c, that was the host name, or is the host name of my database container. So it tries to connect there, of course, port 1521. The DB service name is sample. Remember, we created that service using the sample data. We dropped the sample. And we are going to have the Siebel server logical name, well, for lack of a better naming convention, SES01, running as the user 1000, the user ID 1000, which maps out to OPC, the Oracle Public Cloud user, which is the default user on those containers. There's a stop timeout, so we give up after 10 minutes if it doesn't work, which is quite a lot of time. And, well, that's the image we use. So our first container is going to be a Siebel server, but of course, it's not going to be a running Siebel server because there's no gateway. It will just give it a try and will verify the database connections. That's why I choose this image as the first one. So without further ado, let's run this, and we get a return. So podman ps tells us the Siebel server starting. So let's see how it does, how it's doing. So here is the container in podman desktop. Do we have a log? Well, it's executing a script, which is the Siebel initialization script. So it figures out what to do next and maps out all the mount points and all that stuff. And you see that it echoes Siebel DB, a string, into well, can't really see that, but probably TNS names Aura somewhere there. So, and then it sleeps for infinity, typical. So you don't want the container to just stop. It just goes to sleep until you use it. So we should have a terminal by now. And let's do a top C. So we see there's a Tomcat is up, which, as we expect, it's there's no Siebel server starting up. There's none deployed, but the Tomcat's up, waiting for a Siebel server deployment. And what else can we inspect here? We get, for example, into that config folder, which is one of the folders that Oracle creates inside there. What's in there? And the last file just created right now is the TNS names Aura. So in the environment, we can see the TNS admin folder, or TNS admin variable, points to that config folder. So the TNS names here is the one that is really important for our database connection. So let's have a look. And indeed, that line is here. So Siebel DB, and it uses Oracle 19c, port 1521. So we should be able to actually do TNS ping if we're lucky. Not sure if that's available here, but yep, it is. So we can TNS ping Siebel DB, we get a connection. Okay, so we have a database connection. Can we do more? Can we do SQL plus Siebel welcome 1? Why welcome 1? Well, that's the default password in that sample database container. Yes, it's welcome one, so you're welcome. Add Siebel DB. We get a connect. Wow. Is it a real sample database? Like, is there data? Let's do a select count from as user, maybe. Oh, there's users. So that's the sample database user table, as user table. Okay, we have touchdown. We have a database connection from that server. So it can run a Siebel server, it can host a Siebel server using Siebel DB. So make sure you remember Siebel DB or whatever you provide as the input parameter. Okay, well, that's positive. So let's fire up the other containers. Before we fire them up, let's have a quick look. The Siebel server was the most complex because those environment variables. But here we have the first gateway, and the gateways are really, they're really all the same except for, well, the number. We want to have a gateway cluster. It's a little bit counterintuitive to have a gateway cluster on a single machine, but for the sake of education, it's good to learn how gateway clusters work. You can experiment with it. You can see, does it really break when you stop two containers and there's still one running and it's not working because zookeeper quorum and all that. So you can learn a lot by having your own gateway cluster on your own virtual machine, and containers enable us to do this. So we have 3 identical commands, just the name of the gateway is different. And of course they point to different persistent folders. So without further ado, let's run these 3 commands one by one, because we don't want to overwhelm anybody. So gateway, first gateway starting up, second gateway starting up, and the third gateway. And again, this is not a ready-made Siebel environment, Siebel Enterprise. It is just the bare bone machines, and you have to deploy your enterprise. You have to, bootstrap and deploy that. We're coming to that later. Okay, and for good measure, let's fire up the AI. The AI is very similar in settings. For one difference, the AI is our entry point. We don't actually bother with a ingress and load balancer here. We don't even have a Kubernetes or kind cluster. But we need to expose that port, the internal 4430, which is the TLS port for every Tomcat in the container, including internals, by the way. We want to map that to the localhost port 443. So that's the difference here. So let's run that final one, and now we should have a pretty sight here in the containers listing. Yeah, 3 gateways, database, SAI, and our Siebel server. Well, running happily, but not doing anything, not running a Siebel Enterprise because it's not bootstrapped, but ready to bootstrap. Are we ready to bootstrap? Let's find out. Let's go to, well, let's try, be careful first. Let's try localhost. 443 being the default port here. Siebel SMC. Can we get an SMC? Oh yeah, that looks good because of course we have a self-signed certificate delivered by Oracle. We can change that of course later. And that's unsafe, deemed unsafe by the browser, but here we go. There's our SMC login, so we're halfway to an enterprise. And of course we have a login here, and the user ID and password is the same as admin in lowercase. That's how Oracle ships it. And that should get us the bootstrap. Password's not safe, but here's the bootstrap dialog. Well, coming back to that later, so let's leave that for now. We might want to automate all that, so let me close that browser. Okay, but we have in in the course of a few minutes, and I did a lot of explanation, you can see it's actually, well, in 5 minutes or less, you have a ready bare bone Siebel infrastructure set up. And imagine that being on any Kubernetes cluster or OpenShift cluster of your choice. The containers enable us to do this very quickly, and also updates to the next Siebel version are piece of cake by just replacing those containers. So what with all the data that Siebel requires, log files that must be kept. If you destroy these containers, you don't want to take the log files with you, or the zookeeper registry, if it existed yet, but it doesn't exist. But let's check out the persistence folders. Should be, yeah, they're used. So you see everything that Oracle deems in this Siebel version necessary to persist. So Oracle decides on that, and changes can be made, but you have to create your own images then. So we have, for example, here the application container internal, because it's a gateway. We have the logs. Yeah, started up and all that. So we even should have an access log by now because, well, we accessed it, right? Okay, so you don't have to really get into the containers to get the log files. And that's the whole point of containers, right? Containers are sealed off. You don't want to get into the container every time you need anything. You just have an interface, or in this case, you have the persistent files to look at or to change if you want to change anything, and they will be persisted. So same is for Gateway 2, Gateway 3, they're all running. File system, well, it has web apps because that's how Siebel maps out your custom folders for scripts. Siebel custom, yeah, you get the idea. So that's where you put your custom stuff in that web apps folder. Well, you can change that, but you need to, again, you need to override the image, create your own image. It's possible. AI uses external application container. SES has an internal one. The Sieb server, the enterprises. There's nothing in the enterprises, no log files yet, because no Siebel server is running, but it has already mapped out, mounted these folders. So that's good to see. Let's bootstrap. And since we are using containers and we're building up on, well, sitting or standing on the shoulders of giants like Duncan Ford, who provided a build and launch system for the MD installer on GitHub. There it is, right in front of us. Sorry, click the link. We can use the SMC library, the library of scripts in the SMC folder of that, well, lengthy folder name structure. You will find it. And where we find, well, files for the Linux shell, for Bash. So we cannot run them from Windows, probably, but we can run them from Linux, right? So we have Linux on Windows. So yeah, why not? And those scripts are part of the bigger containerization plan that is described in this case study. But basically, you see the variables. So you call the script with the initial AI username, password, gateway host name, gateway port, AI host name, and AI port. And it will use all that and create a JSON payload with the gateway host, and the gateway TLS port's hard-coded here. You can change that. And it will call curl with that payload and thus do the first bootstrap. That's the first bootstrap step. That's the gateway host and gateway TLS port you enter in that first dialog. So why not just use this way and use those scripts to automate our rollout? Of course, I'm running the scripts one by one, but you get the picture. You can create a big master script that runs all these scripts with the correct input. So you can bootstrap and deploy an enterprise in no time. You don't have to do all these clicks in the SMC. Yeah, So that's what Oracle provides us here, so let's use it. So I'm going to actually download that. Download the zip of the entire repo. And let's extract it. Just 7-zip. So here we have some scripts, so we have to follow down that path. Classic MDE, manage scripts, automate architecture, SMC. There we go. Here are the scripts. So they're not really numbered or so, but you can figure it out. So the gateway is the first one, gateway security profiles, the second one, and bootstrap gateway is the third in the bootstrap sequence. So let's see if we can do this. So here's the first script. And are we happy with that port number 8888? Yes, let's say we're happy. If you're not, here's where you change it. Okay, so I need to be able to run these scripts from within a machine that can reach all the other machines. So I'm hijacking the Siebel server, and you could just run another container for that purpose if you wanted to. But why bother? So we have that Siebel server. I'm hijacking the log directory because that anything I copy in there on the machines, I copy that SMC folder with all the scripts into the persistent log directory. We'll remove it later. And here I'm in the terminal of the Siebel server. And let's see, yeah, we have all the files available to that Linux shell here. And I've started preparing the scripts according to, well, the documentation that is here, how to use these scripts. So the first one, you have to pass all these parameters. And that might sound a little bit over the top because I could just, log into SMC and type all that in, and that'll be fine. But on the long term, I can have a master script that helps me set up Bootstrap my environment with the help of Oracle and the great help of Duncan. So let's just try if that works. So I've set the username and password for the initial, the primordial user. I have my gateway, my primary gateway, if you will. It will be the primary if you don't change anything. And the port 4430, that's important. It's the default TLS port on all Tomcats. Let's verify that claim. So let's quickly go to the external, or it's actually an easier way probably. So we have an internal on the SES. Let's check out the conf. That'll be the server XML. And that's your server XML as delivered. So if you want to change that, well, you have to create a new image layer. I can change that permanently here, I guess. So that's 4431, which is the HTTP, and there's 4430, which is the HTTPS port. And that's an internal server XML. And guess what? The external uses the same. So if we go to an AI, just really verifying everything, we should have the same port set up here on the external. So 4430 is really the port you're talking to inside the cluster or inside the containers. Okay, and let's see if we can ping. Let's see if we can ping cgw01 company.com. Oh, we're not allowed to ping here. Okay, let's try different. Let's do a podman exec IT, SES, no, that's not working, SES01, get a bash. So that's how you get in a container, if you haven't seen this before. So now I'm inside the shell on the container, hopefully somehow elevated. Nope, no luck. Can I do sudo? No sudo, no ping. Okay, these machines are pretty much tightened down. Can I do telnet? Probably not. Okay. We can do wget, right? No, we can't do. We can do curl. We will do curl in just a moment. So let's run this command and just see what happens. Okay, yeah, of course. We can do bash. Okay. There's something that happened, and that was an HTTP 200. Okay, so is that all right or not? Well, one way to find out by logging into the SMC and seeing where we are. We are at the first step of Bootstrap, so now if we log in, we should see the second step of Bootstrap. And yes, so the first step has worked. Wow, how cool is that? So again, first time you do this, it will take a while to, well, find the next file in the sequence, which is, in our case, the set gateway security profile. So let's just open this one and grab the usage here. So there's a lot of stuff here. That, of course, uses one way of setting up a security profile. So maybe the security profile, if you want different stuff, you can do it different, but it uses the standard, the basic, with you provide the host, the password, the port number, and so forth. So, but that's what you would enter in the SMC. So let's just give it a try. So again, I elaborate on this a little bit, and you can fast forward if you know what you're doing already. And so that'll be the set gateway sec profile command. I will bash. And well, we can copy that. We send that towards this AI. We can copy that. Now we have the DB host, so that's Oracle 19C. Then we have E, the DB port 1521. We have F, the DB service name, so that'll be Siebel or sample. Sample it is. Well, we can see that. Check that out. Double check in the database persistence, or actually you can check it on the Siebel server real quick. Go to config. So we have the service name is sample. Yeah, just wanted to double check. So we have the host, port, service name. It will be able to connect. And we have a table owner. And we have a verification user and a password. So that way you can figure out the commands really quick. And so let's cross our little fingers and see if we can run the second part of the Bootstrap from, well, right here. We have to go back to the Siebel server log. Yep, that's the place. So, okay, here goes nothing. We have always look out for a 200. So we get a 200, so we have us a security profile. And now if we go back to the SMC, we should be able to log in with our real database user account. It's the first time Siebel uses the sample database. And we have the third step of the Bootstrap, and that's creating the gateway registry. So I could do it here, but I decide not to. And I will pause the video and only come back when I'm running the next command, so you get the idea how you can automate that Bootstrap, and we'll automate all the steps all the way down to, well, at least an initial Siebel Enterprise on one gateway. So ready to bootstrap that gateway, which creates the the Zookeeper registry. And there's just one thing I changed in that file. It's that registry port number. I like to use 2330, not 2320, which is really like, yeah, if you're a Siebel boomer like me, then 2320 is the gateway port, and 2330 is a Zookeeper client port. That's just a preference. So I changed that in the very file that's available to the Linux machine. So I've prepared my command and I will run it. And that gives me, well, it will come back eventually because it's, well, working. It should be deploying a gateway registry as we speak. And comes back with 200 after a while, so looking good. So we can verify in many ways, but one way is to go to the Cloud Gateway 01, and now in that gateway server directory you have yourself a registry with the version 2 folder, so Zookeeper is up and running. Wow, all through curl commands, yeah, so that's how cool modern Siebel is, right? So, and another way to verify it is, of course, go back to the SMC, login, and we shouldn't get any bootstrap message. We get right into the SMC, but of course, they're just the vanilla profiles. Well, they're not just, there's our security profile, by the way, which we created through curl. And we have, for example, that's the next step, create an enterprise profile. We have the sample profile, we could clone that, or we could create our own profile through a REST call and deploy that enterprise. That's exactly what we're going to do. So, and just to be clear, management, there's no enterprise yet, so but it's a Zookeeper and ready to deploy a Siebel Enterprise. So let's get out of here because we're not doing any clicks today. We are curling. And the next curl script is let's check out create enterprise profile. So as the Siebel professional you are, create enterprise profile and then deploy enterprise, and then create server profile and deploy server, and then create AI profile and deploy the AI. You can even do other things. So we have a treasure trove of scripts here. So let's start with create enterprise profile. So that's another curl call with a lot of arguments. And that's, user password server port. That's probably the name of the profile name. And we have the file system, the table owner, the database, connect string. So you know a Siebel Enterprise profile in SMC or Zookeeper is quite simplistic. That's the whole JSON you need. So you build that JSON, you send it off using your preferred HTTP client on the command line, such as curl. So here the arguments are a little bit tricky, so I come back when I have the command ready. Okay, so all the commands from now on will start with this user that we'll use to log in to the AI, basically authenticate against the AI, and the rest of the parameters are dependent on the command we do. So we need a name for the enterprise profile, a file system path, and notice how it's /fss because that's the path on the container. Then we have a table owner and we have a database connection, so that command should give us an enterprise profile. Let's see, success. And I always like to verify that. So could have stayed logged in now by now. So that has created a profile. So make sure all these values are valid. Well, the password we can't really verify here. Can we do? Okay. Yes, a lot of things hidden. Not sure about that table owner here, but why it's not shown. So that looks a little bit fishy here because there's no connect string, no table owner. So maybe over time, since those scripts were created, the schema has slightly changed. So how do you actually get the current schema if you want to, well, keep up with Oracle? And don't blame Oracle for having old scripts on that case study because that's a case study, right? So you have to know what you're doing. But here's a little trick. You go to your developer tools in the browser and you go to network, and then let's just update this one with the correct connect string and password and table owner, and same here. So let's make sure we fill in everything as we would. That's the gateway profile, sysnappy without encryption. And once we submit that, we see that there are several requests made. And that one to enterprises is that's a get. That's the put. So that puts the dev profile. And we can see the payload. And that's what we want. So we can get the source. And now we have a template that we can use, well, here. So see what we're doing here. So you can see username is fine, password's fine, database platform, connect string. So that should have just worked out fine, but it didn't. Okay, maybe my fault. So again, we are celebrating 30 years of Siebel, doing the living in the future, and sometimes the future means you encounter some difficulties and you overcome them. So, well, that's all same, and my guess is that it would likely have worked. But we double checked and we updated the profile manually, well, which is okay for now, I guess. So let's deploy that enterprise from another script. So again, I inspected the original script to get the arguments, and it's really just which profile they want to deploy, what's the name of the enterprise and the description. So it shouldn't be too difficult to pass those parameters. We know in 1 minute. And well, we get a 200. It's coming back pretty quick because it just sends the deploy command. And that means something happens on the server. We can see the CPU going off. It's actually showing the CPU of, well, not just that container. Guess so. So it's busy. The environment is busy. So let's go to the deployment page here. Let's keep refreshing that. Oh, we can see an enterprise is being deployed. Deployment in progress for that enterprise, and we just have a little patience here and keep refreshing. We shall see that the enterprise has been hopefully successfully deployed in a few moments. And as a matter of fact, it has. So green ball for the enterprise. Remember, the green ball means deployed. It doesn't mean it's operational. It's just successfully deployed, which means it's in Zookeeper now as an enterprise definition, and we're verifying here. So we have our file system. Remember, when you deploy an enterprise, the initial file system structure is created. So all these folders were just created right now by the enterprise deployment. So that was a success. So next up is our Siebel server profile. So again, I inspected the create server profile script. We have the usual authentication, the login, and then we have the name of the profile. We have the comp groups. How do you get these comp group names? Good question. Take a look at the sample architecture 19 file in that GitHub repository, where here's the full comp group list with the proper acronyms. Or you probably can read them from another Siebel Enterprise as well, but they're comma separated, lowercase. So these are the comp groups checked in that profile. And then we have the anonymous user and password. So again, all of this can be learned from inspecting those commands. So let's just run that. And we get a 200, but we are, of course, careful and we verify the SCS1 profile exists. It has the proper, well, passwords cannot be shown. Not sure if that password got through. So again, I'm not sure what goes on here. I just update this. And we have the component groups we want. We have the ports. Default ports are fine. So there's our Siebel server profile. And of course, we can use that profile to deploy our Siebel server. So that will happen on the same machine that we work on, which is a little bit weird, but should be fine. and we get to the next command. So here's the command to deploy the server. Again, we connect to our AI server. We use that profile we just created. That's a little bit too much here. The enterprise, that's just copy-paste error. So after D we have E, the server name. That's the logical Siebel server name and the description. We have the host and port of the Siebel server we want to deploy to, and we have languages. So all of this is now in the command. And we're going to run it. Fingers crossed. So it sends it off pretty quick. Look out for the 200, and well, we can see that server gets a little busy now. Let's do a top C. Okay, so we see the command has reached our machine. Even if you don't have to do it from this machine, but you understand that. But you see server CFG is busy setting up that, well, that Siebel server template. And then, of course, it will start the Siebel server. So that will be a real Siebel server starting up. Again, all without any clicks. Just commands you can then use in a master script file. And that will take a moment or a few moments to configure and launch that Siebel server. And as is usual, it will launch, then stop, and then launch again. So as usual, you have to be a little bit patient here. Maybe grab a coffee. And while I'm grabbing a coffee, I will pause the video and come back right when the Siebel server is up. So we should be halfway there or even there. I'm refreshing. We have us a Siebel server deployed, officially deployed, but it's probably still starting up. As we can see by the top C, machine's quite busy, so let it just cool off, bringing that Siebel server up. And you can see the components starting up quite nicely, and that's all because we prepared our environment so well. So again, we'll need to wait until the machine cools down, so I'll come back right when that happens. All right, the Siebel server startup is complete. So that means in SMC we have our Siebel server. Let's go to settings, click refresh configuration. You can do that, so it reads everything from Zookeeper again. And let's go for management. We see our enterprise. We should see a Siebel server running. Let's verify that. Yeah, very nice. We should see components on that server. Truly nice. You know what you can do with those components to speed up the server startup sequence is put some of these components to manual start. Like components that you really don't need. Of course, keep call center, keep web tools, EI, but components that you don't need right away, you can set to manual start. You do that actually in configuration. So I just do it for one and you get the idea. So let's do it for that. Business integration, batch manager, click manual start. It will switch to auto start. That means you can put it back on auto. Keep it for call center, object manager, etc. The next script we want to run in that series of, well, keep getting an enterprise up is a big one. It's actually the AI profile. AI profiles are very big. They have, they have these application sections that you can make out here, call center and web tools. So for each application you want defined, have that section. And I prepared the script, so ready to run it. So still using that Siebel server machine, doesn't matter which machine. And comes back with 200. So we should have a nice profile. Let's check it out. AI 0. Again, let's verify those passwords. That one came nice. That too. Yeah, the mapping to the object manager. And we have 2 applications, call center and web tools. If you need more, of course, you can go in here or you can change the script to add more stuff to the profile. But yeah, this all looks pretty good. Really don't need to repeat that here, the anonymous user, but we're just making sure everything happened. And it looks like a nice profile, and we can now deploy the AI. So again, once you start creating those scripts, it becomes rather easy, as you can mostly copy paste that stuff. So here we deploy the AI SAI profile. That shouldn't be there. We have the AI name, description, and the host we deploy on the AI. Let's double check the host and port, H and I, and we don't need that language. So, okay, that's the final one, getting us ready to use Siebel on this environment. Okay, another 200 deployment in progress, that means, so we have to be patient. And we can check here, of course, refreshing. We see the AI is deployed successfully on the AI container. And of course, we want to check that, so we will just try call center. And there we get us a login page, getting close. And we should get us in, well, we should be logged into the application. Yep. And there you have it. Is it real? Is it really Siebel Sample Database? Let's check out the accounts. Yes, that looks like Siebel Sample Database to me. Very nice. Is that really Siebel 25? Let's check it out. Siebel 25, including the repository version. So that's very important. So that's like an evaluation environment you have with little effort. You have a environment which gives you the ability to validate or evaluate features that Oracle puts under the repository upgrade, which you might need to run in the first place on your dev environment. You don't want to do that. So that sample database has all the repository upgrade stuff of 25.1, so including earlier stuff like, well, the Redwood theme, which came in 24.6. So can we switch to Redwood here? Is everything in place? Final check. Redwood is currently side menu only. We have Redwood. That's a drop down here, right? That's already an indicator that it's available. We save that, we log out. And we log back in. And there's, well, that's Redwood. We're on the Siebel Sample Database. And there you have it. Let's go back and see the containers. So we have not yet set up a gateway cluster. We can do that later, but we have to find a, well, we have to find a stop. So gateway cluster is optional. The machines are ready to deploy. and we can deploy even more servers if we want to. We can really have a nice playground, sandbox environment. And keep in mind, if you watch that far, that this environment that I show here is for purely educational purposes. It is of no value if you put it in production. It's just evaluation of the current Siebel environment, an environment where you can learn to use Siebel containers, how you can experiment safely. Yeah, you have a lot of benefits using the Siebel Sample Database. That's where the journey started, using containers. Look into the future of Siebel. Well, future is bright ahead of us, so see you there. Thanks for watching. Take care and bye-bye.